Welcome back to the Big Sky Podcast Network Power Rankings presented by Tubbs at the Club, meaning presented by Snake River Stampede Canadian Whiskey. I'm your host, Brian Marceau. And hey, full disclosure, title is misleading. These are not actual power rankings this week. I'm grading the out-of-conference season. One of my favorite episodes we do every year is going through each team, giving a grade, and tend to be a little bit on the harsh side. So we'll see how that goes. Support the show whenever you can, patreon.com/Tubbs of the Club. Without further ado, guys, this is really simple. I just make up the grades. So the grades will, of course, encompass a little bit of what happened this week, but it's also going to give us a chance to look at like what each team has actually done so far. And I thought for like 1 second I was going to talk about Portland State. By the way, Portland State gets an F, but I have to actually spend a few seconds. Portland State may officially be one of the single worst football teams any of us will ever watch in our lifetimes. You might think that has to be hyperbole, right? I mean, yeah, the Vikings are 0-4. They've been outscored 184-23 in their 4 out-of-conference games. Last week, Portland State goes down 23-3 at Hawaii, and I'm not going to break that game down. It's another blowout. But just to run through the scores, Portland State has allowed 42 to Tarleton, 69 to BYU, 50 to North Dakota, and then, hey, their best outing, 23 against Hawaii. That is a long way of saying on the year, Portland State is allowing 46 points a game, and they've scored 5.8 points per game. Yes, I know that they're taught like some of their schedule is not quite fair compared to the rest of the conference, but yeah, you can't do worse than that. And we've seen from a lot of the a lot of Big Sky teams have lost very close games to Mountain West teams. Yeah, that was not Portland State. So I don't know. Maybe tune into Portland State to watch legitimately the worst football team you're going to watch in your entire lifetime. But yeah, Portland State, they get an F. I'm working my way up just based off the standings I'm staring at from ESPN.com. This is not indicative necessarily of rankings, but hey, McLean, glad you joined the show. And your grade for Idaho State of a letter Q, as in your comment, Idaho State earned a Q letter grade. Q is for questions because that's all I have after the OOC. Yeah, Idaho State gets an F. They sit at 1-3. But look, this week, Idaho State beat Lincoln. Yes, you guys know Lincoln is that school that is God knows what. I think it's like a club football team. I don't think they even have a field. Idaho State beat Lincoln 90-0. Are there any worthwhile takeaways from beating Lincoln 90-0? No, other than that Davis Harsin is probably a starting quarterback for Idaho moving on. But otherwise, Idaho State minus Lincoln, they sit at 0-3. And you might say, come on, Brian, you're being a little bit rough because Idaho State hung tough with 2 Mountain West teams, a week 1 loss, a week 0 loss, to UNLV 38-31. And then 2 weeks ago, losing at New Mexico, a pretty good looking New Mexico team, 32-22, kept that game close. Here's what I'm looking at. That Southern Utah loss is not looking better as time goes on, with Southern Utah having lost to San Diego, then just got their ass kicked by UC Davis, who, hey, UC Davis is probably, they're one of the teams we'll talk about a little bit more. But I got to say, Idaho State, maybe some of this to me is just complete disgust at scheduling Lincoln. And what I was told is actually, hey, I don't know if this is 100% correct, so maybe I shouldn't enunciate it. I was told that Idaho State dropped Central Arkansas and replaced Central Arkansas with Lincoln. Don't know if that's true. Just I got a reasonable source who told me that. Maybe I shouldn't have said it, so whatever. It's already out there. Idaho State, I'm sorry, guys. I like Idaho State. I pay attention to Idaho State. They get an F, a resounding F. Now, Idaho State has Northern Colorado this week, and that game, when we get to UNC, there's some actual intrigue because Northern Colorado's done some pretty not that bad things in the OOC when we get there. Idaho State has pieces to be an interesting team, but I'm only talking about the things we've done, and getting murdered by SUU plus Lincoln. I mean, maybe you should bring this up to like an F plus by hanging with the two Mountain West teams and making them sweat. But that UNLV game seems like a long time ago. So yeah, Idaho State, you get an F. Eastern Washington. Now here's another one where I don't want to get too hyped up over a single win. Eastern this week beat Western Illinois 52-31. Now, I say, hey, don't get too stoked because Western Illinois probably sucks pretty damn bad. Their one win came against Valparaiso, and Valparaiso lost to a D3 team. But Eastern is looking for any wins they can pick up, and worth going over is Nate Bell, backup quarterback, had himself a game. He is not the most accurate passer in the world, 11-29 for 272 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks. But also on the ground, ran 18 times, 144 yards for 3 touchdowns. Eastern put up 5 touchdowns on the ground en route to getting there, 52 points. Overall grade for Eastern, I'm going to go with a D. They picked up 1 win. Actually, no, I'm going to go D+. They picked up just 1 win. But Eastern was competitive in 3 out of their 4 games. I'm going to go with a C-. This is a huge, C- for Eastern. Huge curve I'm giving Eastern. The truth is, though, Eastern in 3 out of their 4 games, they have been competitive with a narrow loss 2 weeks ago at Northern Iowa, perennial playoff team Northern Iowa, 17-14, and week 1 loss at Incarnate Word, 31-21. I'm not saying the Incarnate Word loss is looking like spectacular because honestly, Incarnate Word looks not very good. Crewhead 76 saying D- for Eastern. Okay, well, you talked me back down to his D+, Crewhead. You're right. I shouldn't give this many extra credit points. Eastern picked up a win against a garbage team and has losses otherwise. So thank you for that course correction, Crewhead. I'm going to go back to a D+. D+ for Eastern Washington. So if you're reading grades so far, just based off that, quick stop. F for PSU, F for Idaho State, F top 5 Portland State. My bad, guys. D+ for Eastern Washington. Before getting to our next grades, just remind you guys, this is Around the Bar, brought to us by Hughes River Expedition. If you're looking for a great all-inclusive week-long vacation, do not look past your backyard. Hughes River Expeditions has been Vandal-owned and operated since 1976 and are ready to take you on the vacation of a lifetime. Enjoy a multi-day trip down the Middle Fork of the Salmon, the main Salmon River of No Return, the Salmon River Canyon, or the Selway. Check out special trips like the one to see the Perseid Meteor Shower. Camp on pristine beaches, run amazing whitewater, hike scenic trails, spot wildlife, soak in beautiful natural hot springs, and fish some of the most remote stretches of river in the country. You just bring your clothes, let HRE handle the rest. Call them now, 406-540-4450, or check them out at hughesriver.com. Weber State. Oh, man. Weber State is not that different from Eastern Washington. The scheduling gods have helped Weber State out a little bit for sure, but hey, I said that a couple weeks ago, Wildcats had to be sitting at 2-2 at the end of OOC. They are sitting there. This week. I am just not enthusiastic about Weber State, guys. I'm sorry. I try not to shit on teams for no reason. You should check out Twitter. The stadium, Stewart Stadium down in Ogden. Now there's a Weber State W in the mountains behind Stewart Stadium, which lights up at night games. It's actually a really cool thing. That's the best thing Weber State has going for them this year. So the Wildcats beat the Butler Bulldogs, aka non-scholarship Pioneer Butler Bulldogs, 38-24. Quarterback for Weber, Jackson Gilkey. I'm trying so hard to not be needlessly harsh on Weber State, but again, man, Gilkey just loves to throw the ball to the wrong team. A school like Idaho is going to be ecstatic. Gilkey has thrown 9 picks this in the out of conference season, 4 touchdowns, 9 picks. That is absolutely going to bite Weber in the ass sometime during the actual Big Sky season. But anyway, Weber holds on for a 38-24 win over Butler. This game was a lot closer than it should have been at the start of the fourth. Well, okay, maybe not than it should have been. It wasn't that close throughout the game overall. You get to halftime. You get in the second half. Butler was able to get within 10 points at 27-17. Sorry, that's at the end of the second quarter. So at halftime, it's a 10-point game. Butler got it down to 9 in the fourth quarter, but they were never that close. But here's the thing: Butler sucks. They said it 2-2, but they're non-scholarship Pioneer. This is not a team you should get ecstatic about. So, Crewhead, I need to not look at your letter grades because I gotta say I'm going D+ here as well. You cannot tell me that this is a much better resume than what Weber State has, and the 2 wins came against a 1-point win over McNeese State, who is certainly not Big Sky quality, and this win over Butler. So no, Weber State gets a D+. And looking at what the makeup of Weber's been, they're scoring 23 a game. They're allowing 39.5. That's a little unfair because they did have really rough first 2 OOC games. But just what I talked about with the quarterback, with the narrow wins over really not good teams, Weber State gets a D+. Done talking about the Wildcats. Moving next, we have, sorry about that dramatic pause. There's actually a lot of 2-2 teams, so I got to jump around a little bit because I want to spend more time on the interesting teams. Cal Poly is not one of the interesting teams. Mustangs sit at 2-2. One's a sub D1 win. So yeah, and their 1 win came over San Diego. Cal Poly gets a D. Thank you guys for picking up a win over San Diego, something Southern Utah cannot do. Crewhead, you're wrong because Cal Poly has a sub D1 win. You cannot tell me that's a better grade. That's equal to what Weber State has. Weber State at least has 2 FCS wins. Cal Poly, no, they can move the ball at least. Hey, this week they lost to Stephen F. Austin. Stephen F. Austin sits at 2-2 as well. So hey, what happened now here? 3 quarterbacks. I did not realize Bo Kelly was still on Cal Poly. Man, he's been, due to COVID, he's been on that team for a long time. 3 quarterbacks played. Ty Diffenbach had been the starting quarterback. Don't know if that means he went down with injury early. The guy who threw the most passes was Jackson Atkins. Went 13-29, 1 touchdown and 3 picks. On the other side, yes, Sam Vidlac, former Big Sky quarterback, 2 touchdowns. Didn't exactly light the world on fire, but it was enough to beat Cal Poly. Was this maybe a better defensive effort out of Cal Poly than you would expect, allowing 354 yards? But Cal Poly threw 3 picks. Hard to win when you have 3 picks. So done talking about Cal Poly. Now we get to some of the more interesting teams in my mind. Let's talk Sacramento State because they're just next on the list. Sacramento State's another team that sits at 2-2. Now, we grade obviously on what teams actually do as far as wins and losses, but we can also look at the trend line of the team. And this week is official. I said on Tubbs at the club, Sac State is a shit show until further notice. Further notice may have come this last week. The shift to Cardell Williams at quarterback absolutely helped Sacramento State solidify themselves over these last 2 weeks. The win over Mercyhurst last week, nothing to brag about, except Montana State only scored 17 on Mercyhurst. Sac State put up 49. This week, Sac State put up 45 points, beating Central Arkansas 45-16. Now, how ecstatic should one be over win over Central Arkansas? I don't know. I mean, they have a single win over Arkansas Pine Bluff. They have blowout losses at Missouri. They had a blowout loss to Tarleton State, but Tarleton State's kind of killed everyone. So nothing. I wouldn't read too much into Central Arkansas other than they've been solid over the last handful of years. James TA Torment Aldrich saying UCA is pretty mid this year. Okay, well, hey, a mid FCS team. I mean, there are certainly worse wins teams have on the roster. To talk about Sacramento State now, The Hornets put up 603 yards. That's more not 600 is not average anyone expects, but 603 yards, a little bit more in line with what a lot of people thought we'd see out of Brennan Marion. Plus, Sac State was able to get to the quarterback against Central Arkansas with ease. Cardell Williams had his best game as a Sacramento State Hornet, going 15 to 20 for 252 yards and a touchdown. Also rushed it 8 times for 61 yards and 2 touchdowns. Additionally, Damian Henderson, the second, one of the 8,000 transfers, 15 rushes, 137 yards, and a touchdown. We know the go-go offense is a pretty healthy mix of both rushing the ball and passing. But Damian Henderson, by the way, transferred from Colorado State. So this is what we thought we were going to see. Hard to tell what defensively Sacramento State is based off their wins over, like I said, Mercyhurst and Central Arkansas. But the trend line for Sac State clearly is up. And one of the huge things that had to happen for Sac State is it took until the Nevada game which was only their second game. It took the Nevada game for the Jane Rashada experiment to officially come to a close. That's when Cardell Williams took over, and he's been playing better and better each of these last 3 weeks. And then you look at the upcoming weeks, there's at least 2 gimme wins probably for Sacramento State with Cal Poly this week, and a bye week, and then Weber State. So I'm going to give Sacramento State a C. Yeah, C's fair. A straight C. Now, I do think SAC has officially launched into they are now a team to pay attention. They are no longer a team that you expect is just going to be a complete catastrophe. Getting the quarterback situation resolved was a big deal, but you also see, like, hey, when they can pass the ball, well, now that opens up the running lanes, because you look at the running output, like I told you, from Damian Henderson and Cardell Williams, but you also had, hey, Ronnie Hammond Jr., 8 carries for 40 yards. That's not nothing. And Ernest Campbell, he has a pretty wild stat line in the Big Sky. Campbell on Sacramento State, he's a running back, and no, my bad, he's a wide receiver. 8 catches for 228 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's a deep threat. So again, he's the burner, freshman on Sacramento State. He's the burner to pay attention to. But I was looking through Big Sky leaders and saw a dude with 8 total catches was the number 4 receiver in the Big Sky on the season. Pretty astounding. Yeah, on those 8 catches, he's averaging 76 yards a game. That's 2 catches. That's it. Max Antouche saying, this is my favorite show of the week. Thank you, Max. Trebe Talks, Late Night with Marceau. I'm now actually committing the sin Max likes when I don't talk about the comment section. So my bad, Max. All right, we're done talking about Sac State. We said they get a C, but they're moving in the right direction. If we recorded this last week, they would have been a easy D 2 weeks ago. Oh no, they're flaming F. So Sac State trending up, and up. They're a team to pay attention to through the rest of the Big Sky season. Like I said, the Sac State officially not a shit show as of now. Another team that I think is a surprise at where they slot is Northern Colorado, who has always had a soft spot in my heart. I had many people accuse me of being a Northern Colorado fan, and I gotta say the Bears. I'm gonna. Look, they sit at 2-2, and one's a sub D1 win. But they got legitimately hosed in week 2 over in their 21-17 loss to Colorado State. Then went to OT with South Dakota. Then went to OT and beat Houston Christian this week. Now, of note, it took overtime, but even at regulation, Northern Colorado finally broke through that ceiling of 17 points scored per game. Put up 26 against Houston Christian. Is that lighting the world on fire? Oh, of course not. So what are we seeing out of what Northern Colorado does is they pass the ball quite a bit more against Houston Christian. Eric Gibson, Jr., quarterback, threw twice to the wrong team, but went 24-37 for 215 yards and a touchdown. On the ground, the big story was Matthias Price, 27 carries, 126 yards, and a touchdown. So on notice there. Well, that's one guy producing pretty damn well. Another one that's a surprise as one of the conference leaders because of who Northern Colorado is Carver Cheeks, wide receiver. He's the number 5 receiver in the Big Sky right now. 19 catches, 289 yards, and a touchdown. That's good for 72 yards per game. So all of that is to, hey, James saying UNC is A+ based off the expectations we had 4 weeks ago. You're right, James, except we're not. This isn't like I'm going to give you a curve because I feel sorry for you. So what is your grade actually? The points for Northern Colorado: 1, they should be 3-1. They got hosed. 2, they at least have a team identity. Defensively, Northern Colorado is giving up a league best right now, 17.8 points per game. Part of that's because they played a D2 team. Part of that's because they played Houston Christian, who sucks. But they also held Colorado State to 21 points in that 21-17 loss. So I agree with Trebe Talks. Cheeks is an unfortunate last name, but I'm going to give a very, very, very reluctant B- to Northern Colorado. 1, because they should have beat Colorado State. But 2, there's at least something going in Northern Colorado. If you said, hey, who is the best bottom half of the Big Sky team right now? This is who I would slot there at that, like at number 7, if I were ranking who I think is the best. Northern Colorado knows what they need to do, and they've been able to keep every single game relatively low scoring. They absolutely have to do that to be competitive, because even with having one of the best offensive games of the season this last week, they still needed OT to get to 26. But Northern Colorado, they're trending up for a fact. James isn't wrong to say that at the start of the season, everyone thought these guys were going to be absolutely a catastrophe. Trebe Talks, Marceau, a known glass half full guy. That is a take, Trebe. That is a take. But say I'm relative to the teams who will for a fact not make the playoffs, relative to the teams who will probably struggle to finish above at 500, certainly not finishing above 500 in Big Sky play. Northern Colorado is one I'm the highest on. Trebe, you obviously missed my discussion of Idaho State, giving them a resounding F. Next, this is all the leftover teams. We're officially entering the world of playoffs. I mean, hey, people are probably going to slot Sac State as a potential playoff team, sitting it with two OOC wins. So there's five or six teams in the Big Sky right now who are thought of as potentially being in the playoff mix for a fact. We already covered Sacramento State. The next team on that list I'm going to get to is, I don't know if Ron's going to be here for this, Montana State. Montana State tops in the polls in the Big Sky right now. Got to say, this last week, 17-0 win over Mercyhurst was, we're going to call that underwhelming, let's say. I was pretty high on how well quarterback Justin Lamson had looked through a lot of the out-of-conference season. Not very spectacular this week against Mercyhurst, 12-17, 121 yards. Threw it one pass to the wrong team and then rushed 8 times for 34 yards. But one of the minor developments that I'm looking at in Montana State is a preseason offensive player of the year was Adam Jones, running back. He was freshman of the year last season. Jones is the number 3 rusher on this team at 135 yards over 43 carries, good for 3.1 yards. The leader is Julius Davis, 230 yards on 34 carries. The number 1 rusher as far as rushing attempts is Lamson. And then this week, leading rusher was Colson Kuhn. That's a long way of saying there's a lot of guys who you can give the ball to and trust them to run, but Montana State's not producing on the ground overall at the level most people thought they would be. And I talked on this show numerous times saying not only did Montana State lose, they lost Tommy Malott to graduation, but some elite top of the FCS offensive line talent is no longer present in Bozeman. And that's not irrelevant at all. So I bring that up because that just one of the weird facets of the out of conference that it is hard to gauge what it means because, hey, Montana State played Oregon and South Dakota State, who might be the best team in the nation. That does impact your overall totals. Like Crew had 76 saying their O-line isn't near what it was last year. I agree. I agree right now. So as far as overall production out of conference, Montana State is the number 5 rushing team in the Big Sky in total yards. And they're the number 7 team in yards per rush. And in rushing touchdowns, they're the number 6 team. So I know it's out of conference. I know that there's not all the schedules are different. That's part of why Idaho State got their F right. But we're 4 games in the season, and Montana State looks like a just okay team at running the football. Didn't think I was going to see that. Now, hey, Lamson helped make up for that some of the other games. But that's a development to pay attention to. So I'm going to give Montana State – Crewhead, you're irritating the shit out of me because you keep picking the grades that I want. I'm going to go B. Yeah, I'll go B here. They hung tight with South Dakota State. I mean, that was an OT game. They win that. We're talking a definitive A. They narrowly lost in OT. So I'm going to go B for Montana State. But I want to compare them, let's say, Sac State. The trend line on Sac State is slamming up, where we have another big week from Sac State and another like not that great week from Montana State. Those, in my mind, those trend lines cross. Of course, national polling is not remotely close to what we're talking about here, but I tend to think national polls take forever to course correct. Tree in the comment section, wow, they're hardly ever in the middle of the pack. Yeah, that's a thing to pay attention to. Montana State, I think they look vulnerable. That doesn't mean they're the number 1. They're the top ranked team in the Big Sky nationally. But every single one of these top 5, 6 teams has a hole or holes in their resume. If the season ended today, would I say I think there's any title contender in the Big Sky? Probably not. I'd say like quarters seem to be the ceiling. No, Tree, I have not talked Idaho. And I'm not saving that necessarily for the end. I'm just working through trying to not screw up my memorization. But back to my actual point. All the top 5, 6 teams have some holes in their resume, but Montana State, like they've been dominant offensively for essentially the entire time Brent Vigen's been there. Running the football has been a way they're just murdering teams. That has definitely not happened. Most people expected Adam Jones was really going to take off, and it's not just that Adam Jones hasn't taken off. It's just on the ground, like no one's really taken off for Montana State. They are able to pass the ball, and we know this too. When you lose generational talent, you don't just keep doing the same thing with new guys. Your distribution has to change. But keep your eyes on Montana State. I think they are more vulnerable than you might guess. We're done talking about the Bobcats. Next team on the list. I'm going to go Idaho. Tree, thanks for bringing that up. I'm going to talk Idaho. But before we talk Idaho, I do have to remind you guys, for a fact, one of the things you need to do is you got to check out vandalgear.com. Vandalgear.com, you're the only place I'd spend any time thinking about trying to get that Fightin' Tater shirt. They also, there's unique designs. You got Grumpy Joe on the retro inspired shirt with the gray stripe across the chest, an homage to the gray stripe Idaho had on the sleeves of those uniforms in the 50th anniversary Kibby Dome game. But look, Pacific Custom Sportswear, that's your company name. It's been Vandal owned and operated for more than 25 years. And look, they can take care of any of your screen printing or embroidery needs. They're based in Spokane. They've worked with the University of Idaho and other regional companies, schools, and orgs for years to provide quality custom apparel. They can help you design a logo or work with your own. They can make t-shirts, they can make sweatshirts, they can make hoodies, whatever you need, they can take care of. Get a hold of Jeff from Pacific Custom Sportswear, website vandalgear.com. All right, dudes. Gotta talk Idaho. Time to talk Idaho. We talked a ton. Now, Trebe is saying C+ to B for Trebe. Now, Idaho, to me, it's a little more complex to give them their grade. Is it a definitive A? No, definitely not. This week, Idaho, in a different version, essentially repeated week 1 of losing by 3 to a Mountain West level team in a game Idaho, for a fact, should have won. This time it was lost at San Jose State, 31-28. Idaho led the entire game until the fourth quarter. Lose on a field goal, 48-yard from Dennis Lynch, who heading into this game for San Jose State was sitting at 0-4. Worth noting, Idaho's Cameron Pope missed a field goal in the first half, 3-point game. What other things to pay attention to? Joshua Wood had another solid game, 18-32, 232 yards, passed for 2 touchdowns, rushed for another touchdown, and also rushed for 41 yards. Art Williams led Idaho on the ground, 65 yards. Emerson Cortez Menjivar led them through the air with 84 yards receiving. The big thing for Idaho that was different this game is defensively, Idaho just they wasn't good enough for Idaho. From essentially the second quarter on. First 3 possessions for San Jose State, Idaho forced fumble, which Idaho recovered, forced 2 punts, and then it was touchdown, field goal to win the game. Now you might say that's not that many possessions. Now, one of the things Idaho did, fantastic, just 39 minutes of time of possession, 39 minutes, incredible. What Jason Eck was doing the last few years with Idaho, not really much last year, but 2 years ago, of really milking the clock. Idaho under Coach Thomas Ford, it's a new level of that. Idaho's shortest touchdown drive was 6 minutes. They had an almost 10-minute touchdown drive in the second half. Incredible time possession. And I say that because San Jose State only had the ball for 21 minutes and was able to win the game. That just tells you that on the possessions where San Jose State scored, it happened way too fast for Idaho. So the overall takeaways on their OOC, they sit at 2-2. They've got FCS wins over St. Thomas, Pioneer League, and FCS win over Utah Tech, and then 2 narrow Mountain West losses. That losses by a combined 6 points to both the FBS teams. Wild to think that Idaho is very close to having a definitive A+, but that's not where they sit. As a team, though, the basic Idaho profile is their scoring numbers haven't been that high. Now, part of that's held down from week 1, but part of that is Idaho really shortens the game with how long they hold on to the ball. It's actually incredible for me how much Idaho holds on to the ball. James TA saying A on offense, B- on defense, F on special teams. I think I'd give the Vandals a B-, A if we let Adams. You mean Forsman, is what you mean. A if we let Forsman kick from the right hash on Saturdays. And Trebe talks, I've only watched 1 full game this season, to be fair. I do think this game gave me a bit more confidence in Wood as a passer. They're hard for me to grade. One, Joshua Wood might be, he's been fantastic for Idaho. Defense has been super up and down. Great week 1, not that great week 2, elite week 3, and then through the air, like the weakness of Idaho's defense is a secondary. Linebackers and up front, I believe, are relative strength, but like they're better at stopping the run than they are getting the quarterback. Long way of saying I'm giving a B. Idaho could certainly, they're so close to an A. If they held on to either of those FBS wins, they're an A. But hey, the B is where they're at. They got 2 wins, 2 FCS wins, looked very good in their other games, but they didn't come up with a W. So gonna give the Vandals a B. This is a team just like Montana State, where hey, they got some things they do real well. They got some holes. The holes are mainly in the secondary. Now, not that many Big Sky teams look like significant threats to really pick apart the Idaho secondary. The teams that are actually on Idaho's schedule are one. Sac State is looking like they can pass the ball a lot better. UC Davis, and then NAU will get to them. They probably got the best quarterback in the league. O-line for Idaho looks certainly better. And the running game it's developing. It's supplemented by Joshua Wood. Idaho haven't been what you'd call like elite rushing the football, as in like, hey, they're towards the top of the Big Sky. They're averaging 203 rushing yards per game. When I'm saying elite, I mean, like, hey, they're not gashing teams like Montana State did previous years, over like 6-ish yards per rush. Idaho's steadied around at 4.8. So, hey, pretty good. Pretty good. But it's more that the way Idaho is committed to running the ball in a way that the rest of the Big Sky just isn't. I mean, Idaho in the out of conference had 169 rushing attempts. That was tops in the league. Next closest was Northern Colorado at 159. But Idaho is a different level of rushing the football right now. And, passing the ball, it's a work in progress. Joshua Wood is very good, but Idaho's been conservative with how often they're going to actually let him throw the ball. 32 passes this last week was the most he'd thrown in the entire season. Head coach Thomas Ford looks like he's kind of targeting that 25-ish number. Not like he picks it, not like there's this quota he has to hit, but passing the ball around 25 times appears to be what this Idaho team wants to do. We'll see if that changes. Wood certainly has looked like a good passer. He did have a couple near picks against San Jose State, at least one of which was not his fault. A ball bounces off the receiver's hand, almost gets picked. That's not on him. But you can look down the field accuracy is something Wood looks like he's certainly getting better at. But he also, if you look at the first 2 weeks, he needed to get better at it. But Wood's in the short list for first team all Big Sky quarterbacks if you're looking at production through the out of conference schedule. So giving Idaho a B, they're so easily could be at an A. But you win the games you win, you lose the games you lose. That's it. So gotta talk about some other teams. I could easily talk about Idaho for a lot longer. I know I'm a vandal, but legitimately the team that I find the most magnetizing is Idaho because of their results. And then maybe the train wreck that is Sac State sometimes you want to look at. Anyway, got to move on, guys. It's so hard to actually get through this episode in less than an hour if I spend any time talking about the rest of the teams. We got 3 more to get through. So because they're next on the list, UC Davis. UC Davis, they sit at 2-1. We can acknowledge they got bailed out in the Mercer game, right? We all know they were going to lose to Mercer. We can say that, right? Okay. So UC Davis, 2-1, should be 2-2 because they were for a fact going to lose. This last week, they beat the hell out of, well, not beat the hell out of, but they won by 16 over Southern Utah. Southern Utah, who killed Idaho State, but has then lost to everyone else. Just take a second to look at the Southern Utah resume. They're going to be in the Big Sky. They had 3 Big Sky out of conference games this season, and Southern Utah, if they're in the Big Sky, they'd be sitting at 1-2 with narrow loss to NAU, a relatively convincing loss to UC Davis, and a ass kicking of Idaho State. That's your Southern Utah update. This game, Caden Pinnock led the way for UC Davis. I take it back. Caden Pinnock did not lead the way. He had a solid game. Passed 13 of 21 for 162 yards and 2 touchdowns, rushed 37 times as well. Davis had 5 rushing touchdowns this game. Look, we've known Tim Plow's an offensive guy. Davis, the last handful of years, has always been a little bit of a mix, maybe if not 50-50, but it's relatively close. Jordan Fisher, 12 rushes for 170 yards and 2 touchdowns. Davis they have needed to reestablish an identity of like who they are now that, they had some generational talent leave too. Fisher had himself a game on the year, 33 carries for 287 yards and 3 touchdowns. So what to make of Davis? And got to add this in. Jordan Fisher is the leading rusher for Davis. He's clearly the running back number 1, 33 carries. Next closest running back has 14. I'm going to give Davis a B-. They don't have the second loss, but they've got Davis does have 2. They have 2 D1 wins. And if I reference like Idaho, like, hey, we do get a talk trend line. I'm going to go with, the B. Davis has been, hey, one of the things that hurt them or hurt our understanding of Davis early in the year is they just weren't playing complete games and, playing like great in the first half and then terrible in the second, or they did flip that script. Where it was against Mercer's, where they're great in the first half and just garbage the second half. Then Utah Tech, they're garbage in the first half and they're good in the second half. Last week against UW doesn't count. This week against Southern Utah, look, you don't score 50 points without being able to produce consistently. Is worth acknowledging this was a 22-20 game at halftime. So took Davis a half to separate. They really blew out Southern Utah in that third quarter, outscoring the Thunderbirds 21-7. But the profile of this Davis team is they're solid. They're solid offensively. Like overall, they're top 5 offense total yards. It's hard to get the defensive numbers you kind of throw out the window because UW exploded what their averages are, but subtracting UW, they're certainly not top of the Big Sky. So they look like they're just like pretty good at both sides of the ball, not electric either way. Caden, it looked like they might be really quarterback centric in their first few weeks. And look, I know that it just acknowledged that Jordan Fisher had 170 yards against Southern Utah. Well, he only had like 60-ish otherwise in the other 2 games combined. So I'd still say that initial take about this team likely being quarterback centric stands until we get Jordan Fisher producing with a little more regularity. Carter Vargas was still effective this game too. 6 carries for 136 yards and a catch for 32 yards. But I mean, part of this is Southern Utah may not actually be any good. Done talking about UC Davis, they get a B. I don't know if I'm going to give out any A's. Actually, I lied. I'm about to give out an A. Northern Arizona, 3-1. Northern Arizona, yeah. Look, their only loss is to Arizona State. They've got wins over Utah Tech, Southern Utah, and Incarnate Turd. Worth acknowledging, not a single win by more than a single score. Beat Utah Tech by 7, Southern Utah by 3, Incarnate Word by 8. This week against Incarnate Word, that was a 31-23 win. Ty Pennington, 17-34 for 286 yards and 3 touchdowns. Seth Cromwell is their number 1 running back, led them with 16 carries for 63 yards. The number 2 receiver in the Big Sky, that was one of the questions for NAU is, hey, we knew that Pennington could throw the ball. He did have new receiving core to adjust. Colby Katzis led NAU against Incarnate Word, 4 catches for 95 yards, no touchdowns. He is on the year averaging 97 yards receiving per game. So crew had to disagree on the B+. 3 D1 wins now bring up. They're all close. And I will not yet say any of those wins was good. But 3 out of conference D1 wins is big for playoff positioning when you look at the rest of the Big Sky, where the only team that is going to have that is realistically Montana. Now, Montana, look, I have to talk, obviously I haven't talked about the Grizz, so they're the last team that we're going to get to. The Grizz schedule is weird because they had that week 1 bye. So on October 18th, the Grizz have their final OOC game against Sacred Heart. It's going to be a W. So the Grizz will finish with essentially 3.5 wins. The D2 win will not count in, as exactly as a full win, but it's not nothing. Anyway, back to NAU, because that was the point of this talk. NAU, until that Montana game, will have the best OOC resume in the Big Sky. So I don't know how they don't get the A. This James bringing up that this week NAU is going to be tested. You're right. That's where they travel to top 5 Portland State and the Vikings 5 points per game offense. Maybe that is not maybe that's when we're finally going to see NAU probably get a more than 2 score win. So I guess takeaways. I'm going to go back to an A-. NAU has the best resume in the Big Sky as of today when I'm doing this episode. Montana's going to pick up that other win, but the demerits against NAU are they're not putting teams away. Now, the positive is NAU, look, their identity for the most part is they score the ball pretty damn well. Minus that ASU game, we're looking at 38 against Utah Tech and 52 against Southern Utah, then in lower scoring for 31 against Incarnate Word. NAU is a team that, for a fact, can put some points on the board in out-of-conference play, even with that ASU game. This is the number 2 score. This is the number 3 scoring offense in the Big Sky. I'm going to throw Idaho State out because they scored 90 against the Lincoln. That jacks up that. So as far as my actual counting, NAU is the number 2 offense in the Big Sky. Montana's the top, but hey, they also had there's a sub D1. There's a sub D1 score in there too. The Lumberjacks, they're efficient. They've Pennington's thrown 2 picks in 4 games, thrown 8 touchdowns as well. Then on the ground, NAU is not, they're middle of the pack. So like they don't throw the ball like 1,000 times, but NAU has the best pure passer in the Big Sky. So A-, got to go A- for NAU because those games are close. Now the thing, look, let's reference Idaho here as a reference point. And you want to go look at Montana Staters as a reference point, go ahead. We do get to factor in like who you actually played. So like, hey, Idaho has 2 wins. Idaho's D1 wins are not spectacular, but they at least have a 2-score win in there. And then they hang with 2 FBS teams, should have come away with wins in both. They didn't, but hey, the Vandals acquitted themselves in those games. NAU has only 1-score wins over no team who looks that good. So just because they get the highest grade, does that mean I think they're the best team in the Big Sky? No, absolutely not. NAU's got a lot to prove. But we know they can pass the ball pretty damn well. Defense has looked suspect for a lot of the season. So now I gotta get to Montana. Before I get to Montana, gotta get you guys to remember, if you're gonna celebrate a big win, if you are going to bemoan a devastating loss, grab yourself a Snake River Stampede Canadian whiskey. Does not matter if you're going with the entry-level Stampede or the small batch 1915 to celebrate a big win. You just can't go wrong. They're both 3-grain whiskeys, 80% corn, 10% rye, 10% malted barley. They're both double barrel finishes. And with each whiskey, the double barrel finish gives some clear, unique notes that let you know that, hey, there is a 2-year age gap between the 1915 small batch and the Stampede 1915 being 2 years older. But the Oloroso sherry finish on the Stampede absolutely shines through. Either of these whiskeys to me are the top 2 Canadian whiskeys available in Idaho State liquor stores, and they are damn affordable at $26 for Stampede, $39 for the 1915. Whatever you do, if you haven't given Snake River a shot, I don't know what's wrong with you. Head to your Idaho State liquor store, grab yourself a Snake River Stampede or a 1915 small batch today. The Grizz. Now, some of the Grizz stats you have to throw out the window. Why do you have to throw some of those Grizz stats out the window? Well, they played Central Washington week 1, and they played Indiana State looks like garbage. But what matters is the Grizz sit at 3-0, actually 2-0 against D1 FCS teams, 1-0 in D2. But both the Grizz wins are against Missouri Valley Football Conference teams. So not even though Indiana State sucks, we're talking playoff stuff. That's not gonna hurt. And what I guess I'd look at is North Dakota. Haven't seen the recent polls, but North Dakota looked like a pretty damn good team, and the Grizz found a way to win. North Dakota sits at 2-2 with win. Although maybe we're a little bit too quick to jump the gun and feel good about where North Dakota's ranked. Their wins are over top 5 Portland State and Valparaiso, who lost to a D3 team. So let's throw an asterisk there. We don't know how good North Dakota is. But we do know Montana's won the games they've played. This week was Kealili Ayat's best game, 22 of 27, 313 yards, 2 touchdowns. Luke Flowers did see the field for 2 passes. Eli Gilman, 13 rushes for 120 yards and 3 touchdowns, including a long rush of 69 yards. And then, hey, Michael Wortham got the ball again too. Now, that's the thing to me that I'm really watching. Well, 2 things. One, is Eli Gilman going to actually get touches against good teams? He 13 carries against ISU, and one catch for 3 yards. So 14 total touches in a blowout. Okay, makes sense to not run the dude into the ground. I bring this up because just in Gilman's career, he does not get as many touches as you would guess. Through 3 games, he's got 44 carries for 400 yards, averaging 9.1 yards per rush, 6 rushing touchdowns. Easily tops in the Big Sky right now as far as a leader in rushing the football. The next closest is Jordan Fisher, who we talked about. He just got 170-ish of his yards in 1 game. It's kind of an ocean between the number 1 running back in the Big Sky, Gilman, and whoever the number 2 is. The 3rd leading rusher in the Big Sky is Joshua Wood at Idaho. So, Gilman far and away the best running back in the Big Sky. That one's not close. The reason I bring that up is he just doesn't always get that many touches. I want to see if that changes during Big Sky play. The other one is Michael Wortham, transfer from Eastern. It's been up and down. Wortham actually getting touches at Montana. I say that because just Montana's had this weird history the last few years where the best guys don't actually get the ball that much. And it's confusing. Hey, we talk about Junior Bergen, who hung around with the Niners roster till the last cuts. He didn't even get enough catches as a receiver last year to make an all-league team. Dude was honorable mention. Wortham essentially takes over that role this week. 5 catches for 78 yards. Also had 3 rushes for 329 yards. So at least you'd say, if you're a Grizz fan, at least Wortham got 8 offensive touches, and he had 1 kick return for 26 yards. So 9, 10, right around there touches. I think for a fact you want Wortham to get at least 10 touches per game. And if you're Montana Grizzly, you probably want Wortham. You want Gilman to get as close to 20 as he can. Don't want to run the dude into the ground, but he needs to average like more than 15 touches a game. This 63-20 win over Indiana State, obvious blowout. I said it was Ayat's best game. 1, it was, as far as what they matter. 2, Ayat's in 6 touchdowns, 4 picks on the season. He threw his picks early in their first 2 games, 2 against Central, 2 against North Dakota. We'll see if this is an actual development. North Dakota also sacked him 6 times. So that is not nothing. So I guess, questions. The other question we have for Montana on season is, can this Grizz team play any defense? They had a defensive touchdown against Indiana State. So that's not nothing. But against North Dakota, and again, we just said, North Dakota, we don't know if they're actually good based off their output. The Grizz certainly were not in control of that game. North Dakota, 460 yards, outgained the Grizz by 92 yards on that game. Montana came with a win. Long way of saying, given Montana, I hate to say it because it's been on a week schedule. But we know they're going to pick up their next win because they play another really, really shitty out-of-conference team. I'm going to go A- because I do think that there's some questions that are not answered from Montana. At the same time, they're not going to lose an out-of-conference game. What am I supposed to do? Tell you that they're not, Montana doesn't, you win all your games. You're going to make the playoffs. You get those 8 wins, you're going to make the playoffs. Now, Montana, for all intents and purposes, they've got essentially 3.5-ish wins as far as playoff counting. So that's where I'm sitting there with Montana. The questions you have with the Grizz are the same questions we've had for the whole season. They have a ton of new guys on defense. Is what we saw against Indiana State, is that going to be at all repeated against the meat of their schedule? Well, we're going to find that out pretty damn quick. They play Idaho this week. That's in Montana. Curious what the line would be, just to see who people think is going to win that game. I know if I'm an Idaho Vandal, I like this matchup way better than I like this San Jose State matchup where the Vandals should have won. On the Grizz side, though, they haven't lost a game yet. So until they lose a game, they haven't. The questions for me offensively are: 1, are Gilman Wortham going to get enough touches? 2, can Ayat actually keep teams honest? He's thrown the ball to the wrong team 4 times in 2 games against one D2 team and one team who might not actually be that great. And then 3rd, he just hasn't been great at pushing the ball downfield in the first place. I think good teams are going to try to make Ayat beat them. And because look, the jury's in on Gilman. Gilman's the best running back in the Big Sky. That's not who you want to beat them. Expect Idaho is going to make Ayat beat them and really sell out to stop the run. On the other side, look, Montana, I don't think they've looked elite defensively. I just really do not think they have it all. So Bobby Houck teams typically are strong defensively, but that's kind of been trending down. If you count last season plus this season, that is on a downward trend. So it's unclear. But like right now, Montana's a top 10 team, and they're certainly not moving down in the polls. So yeah, hey, support the show, patreon.com/Tubs of the Club. If you're an Idaho fan, I do not know why you have not yet done that, because our Discord is the best place to be on game days. If you're a Big Sky fan, you can do it to support the show. And also we talk games other than Idaho. So to put this episode to a close, we're looking at the teams that I think you should be paying attention to overall. The playoff level teams. Hey, your Montana, NAU, UC Davis, Idaho, Montana State, and yes, Sacramento State. All of those teams have at least 2 wins, 2 D1 wins. NAU leads the way with D1 wins right now with 3. Of the bottom half, Northern Colorado is the team that I don't think that they're going to crest into the top half of the conference, but they have certainly played every single team tight. And below Northern Colorado, it's hard to have confidence. Idaho State, I think they can rise from the ashes of their F, but their F is an earned F so far. Weber State, Jackson Gilkey's thrown 9 picks. I don't know how you can be confident in them. Eastern, they're at least kind of keeping some games close, but that's to me is a sad story. Portland State is a goddamn nightmare. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I will be going next week. It gets a lot easier next week because we get to just talk Big Sky games because the teams play each other. But thanks for coming. Thanks for supporting the show. And until next week, go Vandals. At some point, I'm going to find a way to close the show out. Oh, hey, I'll start writing it tubstheclub.substack.com, which I'm sure lots of non-Vandals want to check out. But if you're a Vandal, hey, something else we got going. See you next week. Go Vandals.
Go Vandals. Go Vandals. Go Vandals. Go Vandals. Go Vandals. Go Vandals.